3 weeks ago, a viewer named Dorothy from British Columbia left a comment on my OAS video that genuinely stopped me. She wrote, "Linda, I am 70 years old. I worked as a physiotherapy assistant for 28 years. I receive CPP OAS and GIS every month. 6 weeks ago, a letter arrived from Service Canada that I put on the kitchen counter because I assumed it was a standard update I could read whenever I had time. 3 weeks passed. I finally opened it last Thursday and discovered it was a notice requiring me to confirm specific information on my file within 30 days of the letter date. I had 7 days left. The letter said if I did not respond, my GIS would be suspended pending a manual review. I was 1 week away from losing my GIS without any idea it was about to happen. Nobody called me to follow up. Nobody sent a reminder. Nobody warned me. Not Service Canada, not the CRA, nobody. That comment received over 1,100 replies from seniors in Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, all describing almost identical situations. A Service Canada letter had arrived. They had set it aside, and the consequences of setting it aside had ranged from a suspended GIS payment to a file flag that took months to resolve and that nobody had warned them was coming. Today, I am telling you exactly what types of Service Canada letters can affect your benefits in 2026, what each one means, what happens when you do not respond, and how ignoring even one letter can create a chain reaction through your CPP, your OAS, and your GIS that takes far longer to fix than it would have taken to respond in the first place. Before I walk you through everything, one critical thing. The next OAS and GIS payment date is approaching, and Service Canada will not call you to follow up on a letter they already sent. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now so every time something this urgent comes up, you find out from this channel before a deadline passes on a letter sitting unopened on your counter. Now, let me show you exactly which Service Canada letters you cannot afford to ignore. This is not about letters you receive every year telling you what your next payment amount will be. Those are informational and require no action. This is about a specific category of Service Canada correspondence that arrives when something on your file requires your confirmation, your documentation, or your response within a defined window, and that when ignored produces direct and immediate consequences for your CPP, OAS, and GIS simultaneously. According to Service Canada's published correspondence guidelines on canada.ca, Service Canada communicates with Canadian seniors through official written notices when a periodic file review, an identity verification requirement, an income discrepancy, or a compliance update cannot be resolved without the account holder's active participation. Unlike automatic payment adjustments that Service Canada applies without requiring anything from you, letters requiring a response signal that your file has been specifically flagged and that a clock is already running. According to Statistics Canada, over 6 million Canadians aged 65 and older receive some combination of CPP, OAS, and GIS, and a meaningful portion receive at least one action-required letter per year. The problem is that most seniors either set these letters aside, assuming they are informational, or mistake them for scam attempts, or open them but do not understand what specific action they require and by what deadline. Every one of those responses creates consequences that could have been completely avoided. The first type of Service Canada letter that can affect your benefits is the Periodic File Review Notice, which is the exact letter Dorothy from British Columbia almost missed. According to Service Canada's account management guidelines on canada.ca, Service Canada conducts scheduled reviews of all active senior benefit files to confirm that the information on file remains accurate and consistent with records held by other government departments, including the CRA, Provincial Vital Statistics Offices, and Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. When a review identifies any inconsistency between what Service Canada has on file and what another government database shows, A notice is sent to the account holder requesting confirmation or updated documentation within a specified response window. The response window is typically 30 days from the date of the letter, though in cases where a payment cycle is approaching the window may be shorter. If the response window closes without a reply from the account holder, Service Canada is required, under their administrative guidelines, to place the account under manual review status, which suspends automatic payment processing and can result in CPP, OAS, and GIS all being held simultaneously until the manual review is completed and the account is cleared. The average time for a manual review to be completed and payments restored after a response deadline has passed ranges from several weeks to over a month, depending on the volume of cases in the review queue at the time. The most common triggers for this type of notice include an address discrepancy between the Service Canada file and the CRA file, an identity document expiry flag generated by the 2026 Enhanced Compliance Update, a name inconsistency identified during a cross-reference check, and a banking information discrepancy found during the updated direct deposit verification cycle introduced this year. Who is most at risk of receiving this letter includes seniors who moved in the past 3 years without updating both their Service Canada and CRA files independently, those whose government-issued identification has expired or is within 12 months of expiry, and those who added or changed a joint account holder on their bank account without notifying Service Canada. Who is least at risk includes seniors whose information has been completely consistent and unchanged across all government files for several consecutive years. The second type of letter that can affect your benefits is the GIS renewal notice, and this is the one that catches the most seniors off guard because most assume GIS renews automatically every year without any action required. According to Canada.ca, quote, SGIS renewal guidelines, GIS is normally renewed automatically each July for seniors who have filed their most recent tax return on time and whose CRA file has been fully processed before the Service Canada renewal cycle runs. However, when a senior's tax return has been filed late, or has not yet been processed by CRA before the renewal deadline, Service Canada cannot complete the automatic renewal and instead issues a GIS renewal notice requesting that the senior either confirm their income information directly through My Service Canada or take steps to have their outstanding tax return filed and processed as soon as possible. The maximum GIS for a single senior is a confirmed monthly amount per Canada.ca, while the average Canadian senior receiving GIS gets considerably less based on the income reduction formula, and missing the GIS renewal process can suspend this payment for months while the filing and processing catch-up period runs. Who receives this type of notice includes seniors whose most recent tax return was not on file with CRA before the July renewal cycle ran, those who filed late, and those whose returns were filed on time but have not yet been fully assessed. Who does not receive this notice includes seniors whose returns were filed on time, fully processed, and whose income information was already confirmed in the Service Canada system before the renewal deadline. Here is the insider knowledge moment that almost nobody explains, and it is the most important practical thing to understand when any Service Canada letter arrives. Every piece of genuine Service Canada correspondence includes 3 specific elements that distinguish it from a scam letter and that tell you exactly what to do. The first is a partial social insurance number reference confirming the letter is linked to your specific file. The second is a case or reference number that you can verify independently by logging into your My Service Canada account at canada.ca/en/employment-social-development and checking whether a corresponding notice appears under your messages or required actions. The third is a specific response method, either online through My Service Canada, by mail to a specific Service Canada mailing address, or by phone to the official Service Canada number, never to a number printed on the letter alone. When any letter claiming to be from Service Canada arrives, the correct first step is always to find these three elements, log into your My Service Canada account independently, and verify that the notice appears on your file before doing anything else. This one habit catches both scam letters that do not correspond to anything on your real file and legitimate letters that require urgent action before a deadline runs out. Canadians who work with financial advisors and estate lawyers have a system for reviewing and verifying government correspondence as part of their annual account management process. Most Canadian seniors on CPP OAS and GIS handle their government mail independently and are the most common targets of both scam letters designed to look like Service Canada correspondence and legitimate urgent letters that are mistakenly treated as unimportant. Now, you know the three-element verification check before any letter either gets acted on or gets set aside. The third type of letter that can affect your benefits is the income verification and GIS recalculation notice that arrives when Service Canada identifies a discrepancy between the income figure on your CRA file and the income figure being used to calculate your GIS. According to Canada.ca, SGIS calculation guidelines, your GIS is calculated using the net income figure from your most recently filed and processed tax return, as provided to Service Canada by the CRA. When CRA issues an amended or reassessed return that changes your net income figure on line 23600, that new figure flows into your GIS calculation and can either increase or decrease your monthly payment. Service Canada sends a notice when this income change produces a GIS adjustment that requires your acknowledgement, particularly when the adjustment results in a reduction in GIS or in a request to recover a GIS overpayment that occurred during the period between when the income change took effect and when Service Canada processed it. The GIS is reduced by 50 cents for every dollar of additional net income, resulting from a CRA reassessment, meaning an income increase of $200 from a reassessment reduces GIS by $100 per month going forward and may trigger a recovery notice for the months since the reassessment date. Who receives this type of notice includes seniors whose CRA file was recently reassessed and whose net income changed as a result, and seniors who had a one-time income event in 2025 that was captured in a late or amended filing. Who does not receive this notice includes seniors whose income has been completely stable, whose return was filed on time, and whose CRA file has not been reassessed or amended since their most recent GIS calculation was set. Now, here is the connection most coverage misses completely, and it is the reason Dorothy from British Columbia was 1 week away from losing her GIS without any warning she would have understood as a warning. The periodic file review notice, the GIS renewal notice, and the income verification notice are not three separate issues affecting three separate programs. They all connect through the same Service Canada file and the same CRA income figure. A periodic review notice that is ignored places the entire file under manual review, suspending CPP, OAS, and GIS simultaneously. A GIS renewal notice that is ignored suspends GIS alone initially, but if the underlying issue is an unfiled tax return, it also stops the Canada carbon rebate and the GST credit, which both require the same filed return. An income verification notice that is ignored allows an incorrect income figure to remain on the file, potentially producing an overpayment recovery demand on top of a reduced GIS going forward. Three different letters, three different triggers, one connected file, and every consequence is harder to fix after the deadline has passed than it would have been to prevent by responding before it did. Dorothy did not know about any of these connections when she almost left that letter unopened for another week. She knew a letter had arrived. She did not know it was 1 week away from suspending the GIS payment that covered her monthly grocery and utility budget. Dorothy called Service Canada on the day she opened the letter and asked the representative to walk through exactly what the review notice required and what she needed to provide. The representative confirmed her file had been flagged because her Service Canada address did not match the address on her most recent CRA Notice of Assessment following a move she had made 18 months earlier. Dorothy updated both addresses in the same call, one through Service Canada directly and one through her CRA My account that she accessed while still on the phone. The entire resolution took 34 minutes. A written confirmation arrived within 10 days confirming her file was fully cleared and her payments would continue uninterrupted through the next payment cycle. Dorothy told me afterward that if she had opened that letter on the day it arrived instead of 3 weeks later, she would have had a full month to resolve something that turned out to take less than an hour. If she had opened it a week later than she did, she would have missed the deadline entirely and spent weeks waiting for a manual review to restore payments she depends on every month. So here are 3 steps you can complete this week. Step 1, check every piece of mail from Service Canada or the CRA you have received in the past 60 days. For any letter you have not fully read, open it today and look specifically for a response deadline date, a case or reference number, and a response method. If you find a letter with a response deadline log into your My Service Canada account at canada.ca/en/employment-social-development immediately, and check whether a corresponding notice or required action appears under your messages. Step 2, set up digital notifications through both your My Service Canada account and your CRA. My account at canada.ca/en/revenue-agency, so that when new correspondence is issued to your file, you receive an email alert immediately rather than waiting for a physical letter that might sit unopened on your counter for days or weeks. If you need help setting this up, call Service Canada at 1-800-277-9914 and ask a representative to walk you through activating email notifications on your account. Step 3, share this video with every person you know over 60 receiving CPP OAS or GIS, especially anyone who lives alone and manages their own correspondence without anyone nearby to notice an unopened envelope on the counter, because the seniors most at risk of missing a Service Canada deadline are those with no one to say open that letter before you decide it can wait. One important warning: scammers are specifically designing letters and phone calls to look and sound like Service Canada correspondence, complete with government logos, reference numbers, and threatening language about suspended benefits. The CRA will never demand immediate payment by phone or ask for gift cards, and Service Canada will never call you unsolicited threatening to suspend your benefits unless you provide immediate payment. If any letter or call demands immediate payment or threatens legal consequences, use the 3-element verification check I described before responding to anything and report suspicious contact to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre at 1-888-495-8501. Have you ever received a Service Canada letter that you set aside for later and then discovered it had a response deadline you almost missed? And after watching this video today, do you feel confident you would recognize a genuine action-required Service Canada letter the moment it arrives, rather than setting it aside as something that can wait? Drop your province in the comments, because I want to understand how many Canadian seniors are managing their government correspondence confidently, and how many are finding out today that a letter sitting on their counter right now might already have a deadline counting down on it. What we covered today is confirmed, and these letter types are already being issued to Canadian seniors across the country in 2026. More correspondence requiring action will arrive before the end of this year, and Service Canada will not follow up by phone if you miss the deadline. Subscribe now so that information reaches you here before a letter on your kitchen counter quietly suspends a payment you depend on every single month. You spent your entire working life contributing to this country. You earned every dollar of your CPP OAS and GIS. Make sure no unopened envelope is standing between you and what you are owed. I am Canada's Seniors Update, and I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.